The bloody saga of Mexican and Colombian cartels following Pablo Escobar's death. This is the game After Pablo from Blast City Games and designer Nate Hayden. It's 1994. Pablo Escobar has been killed and the Colombian Medellin cartel has been dismantled, a short-lived victory for the DEA. The Mexican cartels now see an opening to establish a new organized trade. Power shifts from Colombia and now centers in Mexico as the primary distributor of narcotics. After Pablo tells the story of the Mexican and Colombian narcotics business in the time following Escobar's death. Each player controls a cartel and must establish leadership and control of the drug market while maintaining their business operations. After several seasons, the cartel, which has taken the greatest command of the narco trade, will gain the trust of the market and fill the gap left by Escobar's death. The Serpent has many heads. It's an economic strategy game for 2 to 4 players. 120 minutes is what the playtime is written at. And the designer, as I've said before, is Mr. Nate Hayden. Nate has done a bunch of games that we've looked at on the channel over the past bunch of years. Mushroom Eaters, Cave Evil, Rocky Mountain Man, Sea Evil, Freak Face, etc., etc., etc. He's done a ton of games. All of them are huge hits in this house, and I've been waiting to get a copy of this game for the longest time. A few years ago, I think 3 years ago at this point, Nate had posted on the forum for After Pablo on Board Game Geek that he had some copies of the game box that he found in storage, and he kind of put them up for offer. On the forum to anybody that would want one. I was lucky enough to get to him early enough where I got one. So it's been sitting on the shelf for a few years now, waiting to get the print and play sorted out and start to play the game. That day has come. I got the cards from Wargame Vault in the mail yesterday. I printed off the board. I took the files to Staples. They did an amazing job printing them, and then I mounted them on mat board, like framing mat board. All the components came from a German company, the name of which I won't attempt to say here, but I'll leave links to everything in the description of the video, where if you're interested in doing a print and play of your own, there will be enough links there that you can follow yourself. I think in the files themselves from Wargame Vault, I don't believe you get a copy of the box art, so you may be in a situation of trying to find some photos. I think there's some images on Board Game Geek that you can find, just of the front cover, not of the sides, that then you can print up your own. But this is kind of the overview of how the game starts off. This is kind of the first setup, so I thought we'd go through the different parts of the board. We'd do a basic look at the rules, and I'd probably play at least one full turn of all the players. For a full gameplay video, you can go to the channel. I think it's Heavy Cardboard is the name of the YouTube channel. They do, I don't know, I think it's about an hour and a half, 2 hours possibly. I'm not sure how long it is. They do a really good introduction where he goes through all the rules, and then they play the whole game. It's 4 players that are playing that one as well too, and you see it played through the whole way. So if you really want to get into the weeds and get that level of detail and see an entire gameplay, go and check out the Heavy Cardboard channel. So, as I said, there's 4 players. Each of you are your own kind of cartel. Each of you have your own leader. Here we see the 3 parts of the board. So this first board here is the border board. On the left-hand side, you'll see these tokens here that are basically ways of smuggling your cocaine. The methods of smuggling that you have to meet when you're looking to get some drugs across the border. When you're looking to get drugs across the border, that's entering this A square. Once you've been successful, you move down to B, and then on your next turn, you can start selling to the United States. There's DEA folders here for every single color. You can add these influence cubes, is what these are called here, to a number of places on the boards. One of them is this DEA folder. part of the board of the map here. When you have a bunch of influence, it just allows you to do some special abilities, like once per game kind of abilities, I believe. So the more you add, I think you can add up to 5 at the most. But I think the most expensive DEA influence costs you 3 cubes. So you'll have to have at least that many to get some really good ones. You can still get some influence with 1 cube. But yeah, that's what that is. We also have a court system here. So if you're busted dealing drugs, you'll get arrested. The next season, you'll move down to trial. And then the next season, you'll move to acquittal. The game is played in seasons, as you can see up here. 12 seasons for the 3 and 4 player game. If you're going to play 2 players, you get to do 16 seasons. At the end of every season, we have, what do they call it? Don't remember the name of it right now. Where's my handy dandy cheat sheets here? Period of adjustment is what it's called. So there's a period of adjustment where a bunch of things happen. All the cocaine that's been sold gets cleared out. A new leader of each of Colombia and Mexico are chosen. All those kind of things. A new first player is chosen. And you kind of continue on with the next seasons. So back to the border card. Along the bottom of every card or every map, you'll see some U.S. cities. New York City, Miami, Los Angeles, Washington, D.C., Chicago, Denver, Las Vegas, San Francisco, El Paso, and San Diego. Those are the cities you're going to be selling drugs to. So even though some of those cities are printed on the Mexican and Colombian boards, they're sort of like its own separate piece of board. Think of it as a separate board where you're now doing your dealing. We also have our DEA track up here that'll start moving. Once it gets to the red, there's a bunch of things that'll happen for it to kind of reset. I think one of the things that happens is the leaders of Mexico and Colombia, they each lose one of their influence cubes, which are these cubes on the flags here. At the top of the map is your scoring track. So that's how many points you're going to get throughout the game. Looks like a possibility of getting 35 points. Although when I was playing yesterday, that feels like it's going to be fairly difficult, but I don't know. I didn't play a full game last night. So the next board is the Mexican board. As I said, these are where the leaders go. There's one leader of each color that's there. I do what the heavy cardboard team has done, and I just leave all those cards face down. And it's the same thing here for Colombia. We have all the leaders of the different colors. I just put them face down. When someone comes into power, then I turn their card face up. We have a couple of different areas where you can add influence. You can add influence on the flag, which is for the entire city of Mexico and Colombia, period. And then you can add for these assassins, basically. There's a $1 level, a $2 level, a $4 level, and an $8 level. These are kind of hired gunmen for when you get into a war with another player. When you get into a war with another player, you fight, basically. There's going to be some cards also that have guns on them, like these gorilla cards over here have 3 guns on them. You're going to be using that to fight your opponent, and whoever has the most guns wins. If I had 7 guns and my opponent had 5, that means that they would lose 2 of their influence cubes from wherever the war took place. So if it took place in Mexico, they'd have to lose 2 of their cubes. I don't believe it matters where it's come from. Saying that, I'm assuming that it just comes from the flag, or maybe it comes from both. That I'm not 100% sure of. Yeah. So anyway, that'll be in the rules for you to clarify there. We have 4 levels: a 1 gun, a 2 gun, a 3 gun, and a 4 gun, and obviously the cost rises for each of them. The other thing that we see on every single map are these kind of pinky red kind of spots. This is kind of considered the airport for each of the sections. As you're traveling through the game with your pawn, you're going to be taking action. You have action points that you can use for some of the choices. and 1 action point to move to another area of the map. Even if you move from this end to this end, it only costs you 1 action point, but that's where your pawn goes. You can only do business in the section of the map that your pawn is currently on. So that's kind of, you can't just stay off the board and do influence all over the place. What else on that side? Yeah, and then like I said, that's the season track to control the time of the game. And then finally for the Colombian map, it's the same kind of things. Influence cubes on the flag. Your assassins or your gunmen here, there's only 3 levels of them in this one. It is a 1, a 3, and a 4, and it costs $1, $2, and $4. So along the bottom of the map, as I said, is where you have your contacts in the United States that you're going to be selling drugs to. Each of them have 3 white rectangles on top of them with different numbers associated. When you sell, you're going to be selling to the highest number first per season. So if I want to sell some cocaine, let's say it looks like this, for example. If it's now my turn to sell some cocaine and I want to sell to Chicago, the 9 and the 8 space have already been taken, so I would put a cube in the 7 space. If I wanted to sell to Los Angeles, the 10 space is already taken, so I'd be putting it in the 9 space next. That is the dollar amount that you'll be getting for selling cocaine to these particular cities. And like I said, once we hit the end of the season, all of those deals get wiped off the table and we start fresh again. Let's talk about the cards a little bit. So on the cards themselves, let's see if we can get up here a little bit more. Maybe I'll put the camera down for this one. On the cards themselves, you'll see a couple of different spots on them. In the top left corner, you'll see a dollar amount in this case, and that one says $3. That's the cost of this card. In the top right, you're going to see either a question mark, one of the faction symbols, one of the group symbols, or do we have a wild one here? No, we don't have a wild card. Let's see if I can find a wild card. Or it's going to look like this in the top right. This means, this is basically when you're selling drugs to these individuals, whatever that symbol is there is going to determine whether you have to flip the card over to see whether you're busted. If you're selling to a contact that has your color circle on it, you don't need to check the back because these are people that you've dealt with all the time. You know that they're trustworthy and safe. If I am the yellow player and I want to try to sell to the gray player's contact, I'm going to have to turn the card over to see if I'm busted. In this case, I'm not busted because it's an empty alley. In this case, if I was to sell to, this one is a question mark, it's an unknown contact. So a question mark means that this contact is unknown to anybody on the board. Nobody knows who they are, so it's always a gamble. So in this case, if I would have turned it over, I would have been busted, which means that I would lose one of my influence cubes, would get under arrest, and that bit of cocaine would go back to the pool and I wouldn't be able to sell it. What else do we have on these cards? On the bottom of each of these cards, we also have the methods of smuggling. In this case, this card is worth 2 boats. When we're looking to smuggle our cocaine across the border, we have to play cards from our hand that match these tokens that are up on the left here. In this case, we have a plane, a boat, a mule, a businessman, a jeep, and another boat. So if we can match all 5, that's a perfect 5. We would get 5 victory points for doing that. If we can only match, let's say we could only match these first 4 with cards, whatever counters are left over, you have to turn a card over from the draw deck to see if you're busted. In this case, again, I would be busted, which would mean an influence cube would get under arrest. That bit of cocaine would go back. This card would then get discarded. That's for the smuggling across the border portion. And then on your next turn, you would have to sell to one of the contacts here in the town. And you can buy from 1 to 5 cubes of cocaine at any time. When you buy cocaine, if there is a leader in power here in Colombia, you have to, that player receives the money for the cocaine that you buy. Whoever's in power here, in this case yellow, would get to buy cocaine for free because they control the region. If there's nobody in power, then the money just goes straight to the bank. Nobody collects the money. It just goes straight to the bank up there. Also on these cards, we have sections here where there's special abilities for the card. So this one is one influence cube anywhere. This is you can play these cards on your turn at any time. It doesn't cost you an action. You can play it on your turn at any point in your turn. So I would discard this card and I would get to place one influence cube in anywhere on the map. I can add it to my DEA folder. I can add it to Mexico or Colombia, or to the assassin lines there if I wanted to. Whoever has the most cubes on the flag, they become the leader of that region, in case I didn't say that before. You also have, I think they're called snitches. I think this is a snitch card. There's no cost to these. You can buy it for free. Again, if I was the brown player, I would get this one for free. It wouldn't cost me any money. This one allows me to turn it in for $5 in case I'm broke. What happens is you assign these cards to another player, and there will be penalties for them. They have to take, in this case, to get rid of the card, and they have to do it immediately. They cannot keep these cards. It's something they have to act on right away. They have to lose one influence cube from anywhere on the game, or discard 2 guns, which could be cards or cubes. If they don't want to do either of those, they have to take a weakness disc, which are these black discs hanging out up here. The weakness discs lose you victory points, basically, or command points, I think they're called in this game. What else can I tell you about these cards? That's pretty much it. Oh, the other thing, sometimes you'll get a card like this. In this case, this is like a lawyer. It'll have a star in the side. That means that the card goes up for auction. So if I have, let's say I decide it's my turn and I want to buy this card, and this card, and this card. Let's just say, no, let's say these. Let's say I want to buy those 4 cards right there. I would pay 3 plus 2 is $8. And then this card would go up for auction. So because I am the red player, it would go to the player to your left first, and they would get to bid on the card. Sometimes there may be a situation where there's a couple of auction cards. You auction both cards, or as many cards as have that star. They all get put into a lot together. So it's up to every single player to decide what they want to play. The last player that gets to decide is whose turn it is. I get to have the last, in this case, I get to have the last bid. As long as I bid at least $1 higher than the highest bid, I would win all the cards. You can also pass, obviously, if you don't want to bid on any of the cards at all. Around the board, we just have our draw deck for our contacts in the United States. We've got our smuggling vehicle chits hanging out upside down there. We have our command counter markers. We have our weakness chips. We have our money up top there, our bank. We have our pile of cocaine hanging out over there. And there's also these gorilla cards, which all of them have, I believe every single one have a 3-gun ability. So a strength of 3, basically. And they get drawn, and they always go on this space here, the green gorilla space. They never enter any other parts of the city. Every single player starts out with some money and 3 cards. Every player starts out with 1 gorilla card and 2 contact cards, so 3 total. Player 1 starts out with $18. Player 2 starts off with $20. Player 3, $22. Player 4, $24. So that's kind of how it's that's how it's distributed there. So I think maybe what we'll do, I believe that's about it. I believe I've talked about everything on the board. 19 minutes to talk about that. That's pretty good. I know it's a very, very quick overview. So what I'm probably going to do now is we'll play a hand from each player, and I'll try to show you each of the options you have. When it's your turn, you have 6 options available to you. Let's see if I can find the cheat sheet that lays them out here. We'll put this down again and we'll have a look. What do we have? We can do cartel business where you can spend up to 5 action points, and that means that you get to buy cards and then auction cards and fly to an airport. So let's have player one do the cartel business just to kind of get us started, and I'll show you through that. So player one, which is red, wants to do cartel business. Usually what I was doing yesterday was having a look at the cards that I already had in my hand to see what kind of drug smuggling vehicle I had compared to what's currently on the board. So right now I've got a drug mule, a businessman who's on the board. I've got one boat which is on the board, and I've got a jeep that's on the board. That means I need one more boat and one more plane based on what's laid out here right now. Understanding, of course, that that could change at any moment. So because I'm player one, I've only got $18, so I'm going to have to kind of think about which card I want to get here. So when you're traveling from airport to airport, it costs you a 1 action point, but because we're just starting the game, our counter starts off of the board. To put it on one of the maps is a free action because you have to basically start the game. A boat and a plane. Hey, so there's a plane here. There's a double boat here. So I think I want to start off going to Mexico. So I'm going to start my pawn right in the Mexico space. We'll move you a little closer here. Start my pawn in the Mexico space. And again, for this section, all you're looking for is this top left corner. You can buy any card, no matter what the symbol is on the top right. In this particular case, we do not concern ourselves with that top right faction symbol. We're only concerned with the cost. So I want to buy one, that's 1 action point. That's 2 action points. I think I might get the snitch. That's 3 action points. And maybe I want to, with my 4th action point, so I move. So I've spent 1, 2, 3, 4 action points out of the 5. So I have 1 left. I'm going to buy another card here. So in this case, I didn't buy any cards that would be up for auction. So I'd pay $3, $6, $9 for those 3 cards, because this card is free. So $9. So I got a 10, $1 back. You want to be careful with your money. You want to make sure you have at least $5, or at the most $5 to buy some cocaine. In this case, I've got 9, so I can still buy some drugs to make sure that I can go and deal. So now I take these cards into my hand. You keep your hand hidden so nobody can see them. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 cards right now. 7 is the maximum amount of cards that you can have in your hand at any given time. There is a card, let's see if maybe I got lucky and I got one. Hey, look at this, I did get lucky. There is a card here that one of the special abilities is until the end of your next turn, you can hold 9 cards in your hand. So at this point, I can only hold 7, which is perfect because that's what I've got. So I'm good to kind of keep going there. So that's my turn over. Now we'll go to the next player. But before we do, we have to refill the empty slots. And we just take our draw deck and go from the top. It's important with these draw decks that you don't look on the flip side to see what the cop car, if the cop car is there or not. Gives you a bit of a disadvantage. So now we've laid out new cards. The yellow player can go next. Let's try the next action, which is influence business. So same thing, you may spend up to 5 action points. You can buy influence in Colombia or Mexico. You can buy influence in the DEA folder. You can buy a Seasnos, or you can fly to an airport. Each of those actions is 1 point, and you have 5 to spend total. So the yellow player is going to buy some influence. I think we're going to start, let's start way over here, because I have a feeling somebody's going to want to buy some drugs. So I'm going to start over here, and I'm going to look to add, this is the player that has $20. So I'm going to look to add 2 yellow cubes to the flag. So let's do this one at a time. To add 1 cube, it's going to cost me $1, $2, $3, $4, $5. To add a second cube, it's going to cost me $6. So in this case, it's going to cost me $11 to add 2 cubes there. That's 2 action points. I'm going to do that right now before I forget. So $11. That gives me $9 back here. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And it's important to remember that for the flags themselves, that's how much it costs. So right now I'm in control. We'll come back to that in 1 second. I'm also going to add a $2 assassin basically to this. So that's my third action, and that's going to cost me $2. And I think then I'm going to use 1 action point to fly over to the border town, because I'd like to add 1 cube to my DEA folder. So I've spent 1, 2, 3, 4. This is my 5th action. So when you're adding cubes to your DEA, in this case, it's going to cost me $2. So there's my $2 that's going back into the bank, and the yellow player is left with $5. So this is where you can see where it really depends on it really you have to be wise on how you're spending your money, especially early on in the game. This isn't one I don't think I would do right off the bat, unless maybe I was like the 3rd or 4th player and had more money. Because right now I can't buy cards and buy cocaine because I've only got $5 left. So in this case, I would probably gamble and just buy $5 worth of cocaine on my next turn to try to deal and make some money. But it is a gamble because I only have 3 cards in my hand, and in this case I got lucky. I've got a boat and the businessman, but there's no truck currently on the board there, so I've only got 2 of the 5, so I might only want to buy 2 cubes of cocaine to match those 2. So yeah, that just kind of limits what you can do. So early game is a little trickier when it comes to that. So I spent my $2 there. So now we come to this one. Because I'm the leader, I'm going to choose my yellow commander here and put him face up. So now if somebody decides to buy cocaine, they've got to come through me, which means I get the money, which will also help if I then want to buy some cards before I buy cocaine. So that's the yellow player's turn done. One of the other actions that you can do is, guess what? Buy cocaine. And this is probably something that no matter who I was, when I played the game last night, I used one of the players and did that right on the first turn. You can buy cocaine at any point. You don't have to buy cocaine and then on your next turn go across the border and then on your next turn sell it. You can buy cocaine and hold on to it for a few turns if you want. So that's what this next player is going to do. So you must be in Colombia to buy cocaine. So because we've started off the board, I'm going to move the gray counter to Colombia. I'm going to buy $5 worth. And like I said, because there's a leader now in Colombia, I'm going to pay that $5 to the yellow player. I'm just going to get some change here. There we go. So there's $5 that goes right to the yellow player. I get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 cubes of cocaine here that I'm going to put by the gray player's spot. And that's that turn. That's basically how that one works. And then we're on to the final player, the brown player. What else can we do? There's war. I won't go through a war right now, but you must be in the country with influence cube there. So you have to have influence in the country. One is attacker, then the defender places guns from cartel cards plus your assassins. The loser removes influence equal to the difference. A tie equals no result. Loss of all influence in country earns 1 weakness chip. New country leaders decided immediately. If the attacker wins, you score 2 command points and add 1 influence in that country. If the defender wins, they score 1 command point. So, as I said in the example that I used, if the brown player decided to attack yellow, who's in control over here of Colombia, They would play cards from their hand or expend cubes from this here. The difference would be the amount that the defender has to lose from their influence cubes on that space, is how I'm reading that. If there's no more influence, if I beat the yellow player where he has to lose 5 influence cubes, that means that he's going to lose power. He gets a weakness chit, or token rather, and then I would, if I have the most on the flag, which I wouldn't, it would be 1, 1, and 1. If I had more cubes at that point, then I would become the new leader. So that's kind of how that war works, but like I said, we won't go through that one in this video. And then the last 2 actions are crossing the border and selling to the USA. So obviously, before you can sell to the USA, you have to cross the border. So you can't sell to the USA without doing this border crossing. So because the last player doesn't have any cocaine, I think we might go back and buy some cartel, do some cartel business. Actually, this last player has the $24, so I think he's going to do some influence business again. Because like I said, he's got enough money to kind of spread some influence around first. So the brown player is going to start in Mexico, I think. He's going to start over here to gain some influence in Mexico. He's going to add 1 cube here, so that would be $5. He's going to add... maybe he adds... He's got, what, $24. 13. Maybe he's going to add a $2 assassin there. So that's going to be 5 plus 2 is $7. So that's those 2 actions. Then he's going to fly over to the border, which is going to cost him 1 more action, 3 action points. And he's going to add 1 to his DEA folder, which is another $2. So when it comes to having these 5 action points, you don't have to spend all 5 of them. So in this case, he's just going to do 4 actions. So we added 1 to the Mexican flag. We added 1 to the 2-gun space of the assassins. We flew over to the border and added 1 to our DEA folder. 4 action points. So 5, 6, 7, $9 is what the brown player owes. So we're going to put in our 20 and take back 11. So, and that still leaves the brown player with $15, which is still good to buy some cards, buy some drugs. So that's why I say, like, if you're in the 3rd or 4th player spot, that's probably when your best bet is to be buying a little more influence. So now that he is the influence cube leader on the flag in Mexico, we get out his commander card and put that on top. Brown is now the commander-in-chief of Mexico there. So that's the end of a turn. When you come to the end of a turn, that's the change of a season, which is this here, end of season up top there. So what happens, the first thing you do is scoring. So the leader of Mexico scores 2 command points, and the leader of Colombia scores 1 command point. So 2 points for brown, and 1 point for yellow. So we make those adjustments up here, and we see now that brown is in the lead. The next part of what you can do is you can, each player may purchase 1 luxury for command points. You can spend $10 for beauty and women, and that gives you 1 command point. You can spend $20 for a yacht or a vehicle, and it's 2 command points. Or you can spend $30 for an estate and gain yourself 4 command points. So kind of living in the lap of luxury when you're a successful drug dealer. I found in my previous game that it wasn't until we started selling drugs that you actually had enough money to buy some of these luxury items. So in this case, nobody's going to buy a luxury item. Then the final thing you do is you advance the season marker. So this marker goes up 1 spot over there. And that is the end of the first turn. Maybe we'll take you through the next one because I can sell some. I can show you the uh, smuggling across the border when it comes to the white player. So we'll start again with the red player. Because the red player bought all the cards last time, now has 7 in his hand. He can't buy any more, so I think the red player is going to buy some drugs. So the red player does have $5. And again, because yellow is still in control of Colombia, that $5 goes to the yellow player. And he's going to buy 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 cubes of cocaine there to have in his stash. So that's the red player's turn. Now we move on to the yellow player, and the yellow player now finds himself with a solid $15 and in control of Colombia. So there's a couple of things that he could do. My instinct is to buy cocaine now, because when you're the leader, it doesn't cost you any money. Anything could happen in this turn. If I was playing with some actual real people and not a solo game. So my instinct would be to buy some cocaine while it was free. So we're going to do that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Free drugs. Then we come down to the gray player. What does the gray player have him? He's got $15, $16, $17. That's not bad. But he's only got 3 cards. And his cards are 2 semis, which aren't on the board at all, and 1 Jeep. So he needs 2 boats, a plane, and a businessman. So I think we want to buy... He's got some cocaine already. So I think we want to spend this turn and buy some cards. Okay, so 10, 15, 17 bucks. Let's have a look at the cards here and see what he wants to buy. So gray is starting in this spot way down here. He's got a $2 businessman here, which is one that he needs actually. So he's going to buy this one. So that's 1 action point. Then he's going to fly. He needs what? 2 boats. Is there one with 2 boats? No, there isn't. But there is a boat here in Mexico. So he's going to spend 1 more action point to fly to Mexico. That's 2 action points. He's going to buy this boat, 3 action points. He's got that Jeep. He needs a plane as well, 4 action points. And then I think he's going to buy a card that he can then spend to gain some of to gain some things that are special to the card itself. So maybe he buys this one so he can then use on his next turn or a turn after that. When you buy a card, I believe the rules state that when you first buy a card, you can't automatically spend it to gain the special ability of that card. So we're going to buy those 4 cards. So that's our 5 action points. So he's going to spend 2, 4, $6 of his hard-earned cash. 5 and 6, and right away he gets 1, 2, 3 cards for his hand. Now we're in a situation where we have this card with a star on it. So that means that this one would go up for auction. In our scenario here, it would start with the brown player. The brown player only has 3 cards in his hand, so he probably wants to bid on this one. And I think the brown player is going to bid, what the heck? The brown player has got a bunch of money, so he's going to bid $4 to start with. So then it would go to the the red player, who currently has 7 cards in his hand, so he's going to pass. The yellow player has 3 cards in their hand. He's going to bid $5. So far he is the winner. And then it finally comes back to the gray player, whose turn it is. He's going to decide how much he wants that card, because he only has $11 left. He would have to spend $6 to be able to win that card. And I think he's going to do it. He's going to spend the $6 to buy that card. So we'll cash that in. Get $1, $2, $3, $4 back. He's successful in getting this card that he adds to his hand, and his hand now has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 cards. So he cannot add any more cards to this hand for now. So that's the gray player's turn. And again, every time you do this, make sure that you fill in the spaces. 1, 2, look at this. We got a special card that's come up. We'll deal with that in 1 second. We'll put those out there. A couple of things to quickly talk about here. You'll see on this card, it has any 1 on the bottom. So this card can be used to be any one of these methods of smuggling. There's another card that'll say any 2 on the bottom, and then obviously it can count as any 2 of these methods of smuggling. So we've got a Colombia arrest card. So when this card comes up, this isn't a card that stays in play. It gets dealt with right away. In this case, whoever's in control of Colombia loses 1 influence cube, and it goes to the arrest section of the border town here, and this gets discarded. So Colombia is the yellow player. Let's bring you back down here. Colombia is the yellow player, so he's going to lose 1 of his influence cubes, and it's going to go into the arrest square. Has that made a difference on that flag? No, it hasn't. He still has the most influence in Colombia because he's got 2 cubes. Everybody else has 1. So good call for him to add 2. He still maintains control of Colombia. And that's how you deal with that one. So now we're again at the end of the turn. The Mexican player gets 2 command points for still maintaining control. The Colombia player gets 1 command point for still maintaining control. So that's how our points are now. Red and gray still have to get out of the gate there. So 4 points for brown, 2 points for yellow. We're in a turn now where we can start to sell drugs. So I'll take you through that. I'll do both of them. I'll pretend that red was successful on the previous turn and is now waiting to deal drugs. No, we'll pretend that yellow is that person. Yellow is that player. Red is going to try to smuggle drugs across the border. So the first thing that happens is their player pawn goes to the A space there. We'll tilt that camera down a bit. This is when we're looking at the modes of smuggling here. So let's see what he's got. Starting off, there's a plane at the top. Does he have a plane? Yes, he does. He's got a plane. So he'll spend that card. And we'll just slide that over to show that we've spent it. Next is a boat. He does indeed have a boat. So he's going to slide that one over. Next is a businessman. He does indeed have a businessman. So we're going to slide that one over. Next is a jeep. He does indeed have a jeep. So we'll slide that one over. And the next one is another boat. So what I should have looked through is I have one with 2 boats on it. So we're going to take this single boat back cart into our hand, and we're going to spend this one instead that has 2 boats on it so we can get all the boats. So in this case, we got a perfect 5, which means that the red player is going to get 5 command points because he was successful smuggling every single one of his cocaine cubes because he met all of the conditions on those smuggling tokens there. So good work. You're an expert drug smuggler. So what happens now, these cards go in the discard pile that he's spent. We lose the bottom 2 tokens, and they go in the discard over here. Everything else slides down, and we add 2 more tokens there. So you'll see 3 of them have lightning bolts on it. At this point, you would count how many tokens have lightning bolts on it, and then you'd move the DEA marker up that many. So in this case, the DEA marker is going to go 1, 2, 3. It moves up 3 spaces due to the fact that there's that. He's successful. He slides down. On his next turn, he now has to deal drugs. So that's the end of the first player's turn. Now we move to yellow, and again, we'll pretend that he had the same turn the previous time. So now he's in a stage of selling drugs. So here's what he would do here. Set you up so you can sort of see the map there a little better. He has 5 cubes to sell. The first thing you want to do is you want to look at who you can sell to. How many have your yellow player token? In this case, there's 1, 2, 3 of them that have yellow, and 2 of them that have anybody can sell to. So we'll sell to the yellow player, and then we'll do some card turning just to show you what that looks like. So he's going to sell to San Diego for 8. He's going to sell to San Francisco for 9. And he's going to sell to Chicago for 9. He's also going to do 1 over here on Miami because it's worth $10. So he's going to put 1 cube there. And then just to show you what it looks like, we'll randomize. So we'll try this one over here. So this one has a gray player symbol on it. He's going to gamble and sell that one there for 9. So all you would do in this case is, if it's not your faction or that multi-wild card faction, you'd take that 1 card and turn it over. So in this case, busted. So that means he loses the cocaine cube. It goes back up there. One of his command or his control influence cubes, rather. One of his influence cubes gets arrested. He's got 2 in jail this time. And that card gets discarded. So he didn't make a successful sale there. He made a successful sale at every single other one. So the cards come off and they get replaced. And then we can collect the money for him. In a given turn, you can only sell, when you're selling cocaine, you can only sell to a single spot once per that kind of round. So I couldn't sell here 3 times and get 10, 9, 8, you know what I mean? You'd have to sell to 5 different places. So all of these cards get discarded. We take some new cards to fill up the spaces. There we go. And now he gets, what is it, 9, 18, 26, $36, 20, 30, 5, 36. So $36 for yellow plus the 15 that he already had, so 46. So $51 for yellow. I have a feeling he's going to buy some luxury items at the end of the season. So that's kind of how it goes there, and the gameplay just kind of keeps going as you go down the seasons till, in this case, a 4-player game, till we've played 12 seasons. And then you're going to have your end game scoring, which is going to change everything on your command track there. That is After Pablo, the very broad strokes. There's going to be more details. We didn't cover the war. We didn't show that war example. And a lot of it comes down to, like a lot of these games, what do you choose to do and when? Like I said, in the first round, if you're the first or second player, you don't really have too much money to be getting a lot of influence across the board. So it's beneficial to kind of buy drugs maybe early, especially if you don't want to benefit the player who's in control of Colombia. You're best to buy when nobody's in control of Colombia then, because at least you're not giving your money directly to another player. It's a fantastic game. Like I said, I played it last night most of the way through and really, really enjoyed it. Looking forward to playing it with the family this Sunday. That's going to be our Father's Day Sunday, playing some drug smuggling. Maybe one thing I'll quickly cover is, when you get to the end of the season, let's go through what the end of the season adjustments are, the period of adjustment. So in the period of adjustment, you move the court down 1 space. So in this case, every cube that's in the arrest gets moved down to trial, so they move down 1 spot. You would clean the USA, so all cocaine cubes on American City price boxes are returned to the cocaine stock. So this, and this they'd be gone. We'd advance the DEA case track 1 space. So in this case, we're just moving it up there. We're not into the red. When it is red, you arrest 1 influence cube from Mexico and Colombian leaders and then you'd move the marker back to the beginning space. The next thing is most DEA folder may arrest. Player with the most influence in DEA favor may arrest one influence from Mexico or California. If there's a tie for a majority, no influence is arrested. So in this case, two of us each have 2 cubes, so it would be a tie. Nobody could arrest somebody. And then you'd change the starting player. So the Mexico leader becomes the new starting player. So Brown, we take our first player token and pass it all the way down to Brown because he would be starting the next this next season here. Every single turn, he would be the first player to get to go. And if there's nobody in control of Mexico, the Colombia leader becomes the new starting player. If there's nobody in control of either of those, then the starting player remains the same as the previous season there. So that's how you do the period of adjustment for After Pablo. Right on, everybody. I hope you enjoyed that, and get out there and order some games. Printing and playing your games is actually a blast. This one turned out incredibly well. I'm really, really satisfied with these game boards. My wife was saying that she asked if I got them professionally done. And I said, no, I did them myself. Just get yourself some good Gorilla glue spray, and you can do a really nice job. The finish on this is fantastic. And honestly, this matte board is really good just to add that extra bit of stiffness to it instead of just laying some paper down. Right on. That's it. Thanks very much, everybody. Talk to you later.